Do you know that person? The one who remembers everyone's birthday, who stays late to help a coworker, who always has a shoulder for a friend to cry on, the one who forgives even when no apology is ever given. For Elena, that was her entire world. It revolved around others, their pain, their joy, their chaos. And somewhere along the way, she stopped noticing that her own reflection had begun to fade. Her morning started with a flood of messages, all from people who just needed a minute. Her nights ended with late-night phone calls, listening to broken hearts she was desperately trying to mend. To everyone who knew her, she was pure sunshine, endlessly giving, endlessly smiling. But behind that radiant warmth was a soul quietly burning out, like a candle that had lit too many others, leaving nothing for itself. There were days when Elena would come home after a long day of fixing, helping, and healing, and just sit alone in her room. She'd feel this overwhelming weight of invisible exhaustion. It wasn't the kind of tired you can sleep off. It was something deeper, heavier, as if her spirit was slowly leaking out through the cracks of her own kindness. People would praise her for being so selfless, for never saying no. She wore those words like medals of honor, proud of her ability to be there for everyone. But soon those medals started to feel like heavy chains, weighing her down. She didn't realize that each time she said yes, when every part of her wanted to scream no, a small piece of her simply disappeared. In her mind, kindness meant sacrifice. Love meant endurance. She thought that to be a good person, she had to carry the weight of everyone else's world on her shoulders. But the truth, the one she couldn't see, was that she had confused kindness with fear. The fear of being rejected if she wasn't useful. The fear of disappointing others. The deep-seated fear of being unloved if she ever stopped giving. One evening, after staying up all night comforting a friend who, she knew, would vanish again as soon as their crisis passed, Elena sat by her window. She watched the city lights blur into streaks through her tears, and for the first time in her life, she whispered the question she had never dared to ask out loud. Who will save me? The silence that answered was deafening. It was a profound, empty quiet that echoed in her soul. In that moment, she had a painful realization. She had built her entire life around being useful, not around being truly loved for who she was. Her kindness had become her currency, the only way she knew how to feel seen, how to feel worthy. But what happens when kindness becomes a mask? When you give so much of yourself away that no one, not even you, notices you're completely empty? The days that followed turned into weeks of quiet reflection. Elena began her own small, gentle rebellion. It started with one word. No. She started saying no to favors that she knew would drain her last drop of energy. She stopped apologizing for needing to rest, for taking time for herself. She picked up a journal and began to write, to pour her own feelings onto the page, instead of just absorbing everyone else's. She started taking long walks, rediscovering what it felt like to just be in her own company, without the noise of someone else's needs. At first it was hard. It felt selfish, and the guilt was immense. But slowly, something inside her that had felt dormant for years began to bloom again. She was starting to understand that true kindness isn't about giving until you break. It's about giving from a place of wholeness, of abundance. You cannot pour from an empty cup, and for years, she had been trying to do just that, tipping an empty vessel over and over again, wondering why nothing came out. When her friends called for help, she still cared, deeply. But now, she learned to listen without losing herself in their chaos. She could offer support without becoming their emotional sponge. She finally realized that saying no wasn't cruel or selfish. It was a form of compassionate honesty, both to them and, most importantly, to herself. She was learning to love in balance, not in sacrifice. Her smile, once a polite mask, became real again. The light returned to her eyes, which were no longer hollow and tired. Her world, though it felt a little smaller without the constant drama of others, felt infinitely more genuine, more real. Elena's story isn't rare. So many of us, especially the kindest people, carry this silent exhaustion behind our smiles. We are the givers, the helpers, the fixers, often because we secretly fear we'll be seen as unworthy if we stop. This is the dark side of kindness. It's not about being evil or malicious. It's about an emptiness that has been disguised as goodness for far too long. It's the burnout that comes from a generosity that isn't rooted in self-worth. But here is the beautiful truth. When kindness is reborn from a place of self-love, it transforms into something truly powerful, almost divine. It becomes a force that can heal others without hurting the one who is giving. In the end, Elena learned the most important lesson of her life, the one she had spent years missing. True kindness doesn't mean losing yourself for the sake of others. It means finding yourself first, filling your own cup, and then giving freely and joyfully from that beautiful, overflowing fullness. Thank you so much for watching. If this story resonated with you, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more content that helps us understand ourselves and each other a little better. Take care of yourselves.